Well, good morning, KOTA Territory. Welcome back. If you are joining us again from our weekend weather outlook, welcome back to KOTA Now's Author Spotlight. Today, this author we are kind of shining the spotlight on is Whitnee Coy, an author educator around KOTA Territory. So, first of all, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much again for having me.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
such an honor.
No, and it's an honor to kind of talk to you, especially with some of the works that we you have going on. It seems like there is a big focus on education, kind of youth. We talked on Good Morning Black Hills a
Mhm.
little bit on some of the stuff that you've been focusing on in your career.
Mhm.
So, kind of regarding that, what exactly we talked a little bit about on Good Morning Black Hills. What exactly got you into
Yeah.
writing?
Absolutely. So, just growing up, writing was something that was easy to do. It was also something I was an avid reader as a child. It was also something that was cheap to do. So, growing up with my mom and my grandmother, I think that it was really something that they could promote
Hmm.
for me to, well, if you have a story, and I liked cartoons and things like that,
Right.
write it down. And so that started kind of my writing.
Hmm.
And I progressed doing it in school, attending college for it and whatnot, and then
Right.
becoming an educator.
And
Yeah.
talk about going to school and kind of
Hmm.
learning a little bit more on how to become a more proficient writer, right?
Yeah.
How long did it actually take you to kind of get going?
So it's definitely been a journey. I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky,
Hmm.
and there I was really lucky to go to a public school that was also an arts focused school
Hmm.
where I focused on creative writing. So I actually was able, starting in the fourth grade, to have creative writing classes every day for 3 hours until I graduated 12th grade.
I
So it
mean, that's
really
really
was
neat, though. I mean,
intense,
yeah.
but it was also really beneficial and really
Right.
set me up to pursue then in college my undergraduate and then also my first master's degree, focusing on creative writing and English. And then pretty much from there, after I graduated my master's program, my MFA program in creative writing, I then published
Hmm.
two chapbooks based off of my thesis. And so that kind of started it going
Hmm.
for me. And then recently, last year, was when I kind of dipped my toes into children's literature.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so then this year I have a new children's book coming out as well.
Awesome. I mean, and talking about kind of a little bit on your thesis. What exactly was the theme of that? What was the kind of talk about that?
So, for my MFA in creative writing, my thesis was a full collection of poetry that I had to put together.
Right.
So it was quite literally a full book of poetry, which in
Cool.
turned into two chapbooks.
Yes.
And then actually last week I defended my doctorate dissertation, and so that was on women's superintendency in K through 12 public schools in the Midwest.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And going from what brought you to the Black Hills? What brought you to kind of Dakota Territory, especially knowing that you're from Kentucky?
Yeah, so I've lived here actually over a decade, and so my career, and then I have met my husband, and so
Mhm.
so that's why I'm here and have been here.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And I mean, kind of talking a little bit about what brought you here. I mean, what kept you here? Was it just career,
I would definitely say
family?
mostly career. There was a time where I partially moved back to Kentucky and I was also still working here. So
Hmm.
I would spend about 2 weeks in Kentucky and 2 weeks here,
Right.
actually. And so I just could never really get fully away from it. And so then I committed and moved back. Yeah.
That sounds
Yeah.
amazing. Well, you know what? We're glad to have you here as an author in
Hmm.
KOTA Territory, which is great. Kind of helping the area have some more local authors, more kind of highlighting these local authors, and a little bit more maybe not motivation, more of a. Oh man, I can't think of the word right now. It'll come back to me later.
No,
But
you're fine.
we're fine. Um, uh, but kind of talking a little bit more about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Um, how was your journey in becoming an author? Was it? I mean, you just saying out of the blue, it seems like it was always on the up. Was there ever a time when you were kind of maybe doubting pursuing writing?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think especially thinking about poetry, like that's not going to get you
Uh-huh.
big bucks by any means. But I loved poetry and I felt really tied to it and called to it.
Right.
I think, especially too, when you are submitting to literary journals in poetry, rejection is very high.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in my program, my MFA program, at Eastern Kentucky University, they always stressed for every rejection to go back and do one or two more submissions
Mm-hmm.
to try and counteract it. And so that's something that I have definitely tried to do. So that definitely, I wouldn't necessarily say that's been a setback, but it's been a reality to writing.
Right.
And I think also too, thinking about children's literature and how I wanted to approach that and how I wanted to approach it in a way that was meaningful and also had illustrations and whatnot that could really uplift the story. That was important to me. So it took a lot of time to really focus in on that.
Okay. And I mean, talk a little bit about more on the poetry stuff side.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of poetry do you write?
So I do free verse. A lot of it is narrative based. It's pretty rich in imagery. I use a lot of metaphor and similes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say personal.
And how does that differentiate from maybe what you're working on now?
Yeah. I think whether it's my poetry or my children's literature, I am a fan of imagery, and I think really trying to bring to life concepts is important.
Mm-hmm.
So in my children's literature, I'm looking at writing obviously for children versus
Right.
adults, but at the same time, trying to bring together a story that's also introducing concepts of brain science about emotions
Oh,
and social
right.
emotional learning. And so that's been really key for those stories. The new Elsie's Adventures to Harmony Hills,
Right.
it's focusing on anxiety and her moving and having to kind of overcome that. So it's definitely a different focus.
Well, that sounds. I mean, it sounds exciting. It's also something that maybe some of our viewers would be should look into. And kind of talking about our viewers kind of looking into some of your works. Where can they kind of find some of your works? I know on Good Morning Black Hills we mentioned
Yeah.
that Amazon, some local bookstores
Yeah.
here in KOTA Territory. Could you kind of give our viewers a little bit of
Absolutely.
the where they can find these?
Yeah. So Amazon, if you look up my name, I will have different books there. Through some of my publishers, like Finishing Line Press, we'll have some of my chapbooks and an upcoming chapbook. Um, and then additionally, like you stated, Henry's Books and Spearfish, they have my books. My website, whitneecoy.com, also does, and I do have some pre-sales happening for upcoming books. Yeah.
Well, hopefully some of our viewers are interested enough to kind of
Yeah.
check all those outlets out and maybe kind of get involved a little bit and see, kind of get some of your books and
That would be amazing.
enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
But kind of going back to a little bit more on your career, what exactly, I mean, aside from some of the, your career as an author,
Mhm.
is there anything else that kind of entices you as like as a person? I mean, are you a
Absolutely.
full-time author? Or do you have like another job aside from that?
So I'm also a professor at Ogallala Lakota College, and so I've been in education for over 14 years. So I would also say, coupled with writing, also educating and teaching is really at my core as a person.
Well, that is, I mean, first of all, that's great.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing. Props to you.
Thanks.
Applaud you. And like one of our comments said here, go Whitney,
Oh.
right? But kind of talking a little bit about your education. What got you into education, the world of education?
Yeah, I think for me, education was always a tool that I viewed as important, as a way that I could kind of change my life, particularly like my life trajectory. And so education was really key in that. And I also just had really fantastic teachers and mentors from elementary school through college that were really mentors to me. And so that was something, having those people in my life was really life-changing for me. And so that was kind of why I wanted to step into education.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, it seems like it was mainly these people, these educators gave, inspired me. So now I want to inspire, show that same
Absolutely.
inspiration that they showed me, which is really cool.
Thank you.
And kind of talk a little bit about, the education. Oh, what exactly do you teach at
Yeah.
Lakota College?
So
Technical
I'm
College?
in the humanities and social science department, and because of my background, I teach a little bit of English and communication, but also some of the social science side of things. And then I also teach part-time in the graduate studies, working with teachers who are looking to become principals. Yeah,
Oh my goodness, that's
yeah.
so neat.
I stay busy, that's for
Yes,
sure.
I was gonna say the fact that we have you here is kind of impressive
Yeah.
right now. But kind of going off of that, going back to the author, right? So how does that kind of correlate? Being a children's, at least right now,
Yeah.
both a poet and a children's author.
Mhm.
How does that kind of correlate with your current position at
Yeah.
Lakota Technical College?
So I think both. I think with writing and with publishing, I look at it as a way to continue to teach and to continue to storytell. And for me as a teacher, storytelling is really integrated into my teaching style, and really trying to build those authentic relationships with my students.
Right.
And I think that storytelling is a way to do that. And I would hope that through my children's literature and my poetry that I'm also doing that and building those connections with one another.
And when we mentioned children's literature here, what age demographic are we talking about?
Yeah, so I would say Elsie's Adventures, the series, are geared towards 5 through 10-year-olds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So more of like kind of early into
Mhm.
kind of starting the, I guess, you still have 2 years after that, right? Before you become a teen, but kind
Yeah.
of the preteen,
Yeah.
early childhood. So it's really cool. And then kind of talking about your poetry, what about that age demographic for that one?
I would definitely say anywhere from teenagers through adults. I've done different writing workshops for adults. I've done writing workshops for teenagers and shared some of my poetry for sure. So I would say anywhere from adult through teenagers. Yeah.
And then kind of regarding a little bit on those age demographics here. And I know I know the answer here. It's
Oh,
probably
okay.
I like both, but which one do you prefer to write? I mean, which one's easier for you?
You know, I think for years I've written poetry, and so that has definitely come easier for me. And the children's literature was definitely something that I was like stretching my writing skills and my writing abilities to really transcribe those concepts of the science of the brain and how emotions even work for adults and kids into language and into a story that kids not only enjoyed,
Right.
but they understood and was meaningful. So I would definitely say the children's literature was a bit more challenging.
And I mean, talking about having children understand what's going on or what has been written, how do you do that? I mean, when you're thinking about something like that, how are you able to kind of incorporate that as you're writing? Like,
Yeah.
are the child, or is the child who's going to read this, or is the parent who's reading to the child is that child going to catch on to what I'm trying to say here?
Absolutely. So again, I love imagery, and so really trying to use metaphors that kids and families would understand was important to me. Within my books also at the end I offer kind of some different vocabulary and strategies that parents can use at home
Right.
if their children are feeling overwhelmed or having certain anxiety that is showing in different ways. And then also too, it's been important, my second book for Elsie's Adventures to Harmony Hills, it's going to also be in Spanish because I think that that's also important to really try and break down any sort of language barriers and reach more families.
That's something that didn't even come to mind when writing books. You do kind of have to, at least at some point, kind of expand the works because not
Yeah.
everyone is proficient in English and kind of
Absolutely.
expand other literatures or other languages. Pardon me, which is really cool. And how is that process to do that?
So I've been working with different people who I know that are fluent in Spanish, and they have helped me really take what I had written originally in English and put it into Spanish. Yeah, and so that was kind of the process for
Right.
that. Yeah.
And do you think is this something that you're going to continue doing moving
Yes.
forward?
Yeah. And so it kind of started. I also do traveling to different states and do book readings and signings and events at
Cool.
schools. And so I had a school last year that contacted me and they said, "Is there any way you can also put the book?" At least transcribe it into Spanish for us because many of our students and our families at this event are going to be Spanish speaking first. So I was like, yeah. And so I started kind of figuring out that process. And then as I moved forward with the second book, I was like, this is something I have to do immediately. And I want to continue moving forward to just be able to reach more families.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, again, a lot of applaud
Thank
toward
you.
you because I mean, it seems like not only have you found this kind of niche for yourself, but also you found this kind of way to be able to help and kind of. Help other youth to kind of maybe inspire them to do what you're doing as well, and kind of help them at least grow up as well.
Thank you.
And it's really cool that you're doing that. And kind of shifting topics here a little bit. Moving forward, kind of keeping on the same, little bit on the same theme of moving forward a little bit. Where do you hope to be, 10 years from now with your writing career?
Yeah. Well, I just hope to continue to be able to write more books. I would love to continue to have more full length books of poetry published. And I would also love to be able to continue the series of Elsie. So at this point this year, the second Elsie will be coming out in Elsie's Adventures. And I hope to just continue to grow that. And I mean, I would absolutely love for Elsie's Adventures to be just a name within homes for kids, and it be a book that everybody loves and everybody enjoys and knows that they can go to if they need help when thinking about their emotions, when thinking about their mental health, or how they can help their students if they're a teacher, or their kids if they're a family member.
And you say Elsie, correct? How many books are out for that specific series?
Yeah, so last year the first Elsie's Adventures to Brainy Cove came out, and then this summer the second book in the series, Elsie's Adventures to Harmony Hills, The Big Move, will be out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully some of our viewers can
Yeah.
add that to their wish list, or look out for that whenever they
Absolutely.
are available to add that to their wish lists. Talking a little bit about that series, could you give us a little kind of synopsis of
Yeah.
that book series, or at least what you're hoping that book series becomes?
Yeah. So the first book in the series is really setting up. Elsie is just feeling some big emotions and showing different tendencies that we see in kids, whether that's throwing toys or yelling or slamming a door out of frustration or out of anger. And so her Granny Grace steps in and they take a magical trip to Brainy Cove where she learns about the different parts of her brain and how she can slow down her brain in times that she is feeling overwhelmed or angry. Because emotions such as anger are really important to feel, but it's the way that you are feeling them that we want to make sure that they're healthy to yourself and healthy to the others who are around you. And so then the second book, she's a little older, and Elsie is actually going to be going through a move, which I think a lot of kids go through, or changing of schools. And so Elsie is really excited about it, but at the same time feeling really nervous and having anxiety. And so this book focuses on specifically the feeling of anxiety and what you can do if you are feeling anxious to really not only ease your mind in the moment, but also think about future goals and future ideas within your new situation that you're experiencing.
Kind of, it sounds like hopefully some of these kids that do end up reading both books, the second book whenever it comes out, kind of give them a chance to connect with a character, possibly going through what maybe they are going through. So kind of as we start to wrap up here, if someone is interested, or if someone is, you know, on the kind of on the fence of
Mm-hmm.
deciding whether or not they want to write a children's book,
Mm-hmm.
or just a book in general, whether it's poetry, children's literature, fantasy,
Yeah.
mystery, what exactly would you recommend? What would you say to them?
I would say to just do it and to write. You know, I think especially with writing, there's a lot of editing, and so knowing that your ideas may change from when you start out, and that's okay. I also think to really utilize the rich writing community that the Black Hills offers. There's different poetry groups and poetry open mic readings and things. There's also groups that are tailored towards novel writing and things of that nature. So really lean into those networks. And then I also think utilizing like beta readers. I, especially for the children's literature, have been really fortunate to have educators and to have kids read the books before there's any illustrations or anything, just to get a handle on how are people interacting with the characters, what are their immediate thoughts on the language used, which has been so beneficial for me. Yeah.
I bet, and that was going to be my next question, is what exactly is a beta reader?
Yeah, it's
Which is really cool that they're able to kind of be part of that, part of the process of, you know, what makes your book happen.
yeah.
Is there, kind of as a final question here before we go, is there anything else kind of regarding your career that our viewers should kind of know about, or more about yourself that they should know about? You know, whether that's book-wise, whether that's career-wise, career aspirations-wise, kind of
Yeah.
regarding your writership and stuff like that.
You know, I would just also say not only has education really influenced me, but also my family. My husband is a teacher. We have 3 wonderful kids, and so really being able to be a mother and also experience what my kids are going through, my 1.5-year-old who's just trying to figure out her emotions, has been really eye-opening and helpful. And really beneficial to me, and so I just feel very thankful for them and also the other supporters of the books. Yeah.
No, and that's crazy to think about. Now that you mentioned that, that is crazy to think about how, you know, you can incorporate some of the books that you've written. Have you read some of the books to your
Yeah.
children yet?
Yes, I have. Yeah,
And
I
how-
have.
and, hey, you know what? I feel like if you're a writer and you make these books, I
Yeah.
feel like that's
Yeah.
a good audience to start with. But how have they reacted?
You know, they have just been wonderful. We've been able to do some traveling together where I've done different readings, or they've been a part of a reading at like the local Rapid City Library. I traveled to Eastern Kentucky University and did a reading of both the poetry and my children's book. And so they were there for that, and it was just really a special time. But yes, there's definitely some loose Elsies and whatnot floating around the house, and my 1-year-old is just like tottering around with it and whatnot. So yeah,
Oh,
that also
man.
happens.
No, and you know that's actually that's really neat. It's really wholesome that you know you have that going for you as well.
Thank you.
And you know, I know said that was the last
Yeah.
question like 2 questions ago, but now kind of really quickly before we actually do wrap up here, again just to recap, where can our viewers find some of your works?
Yeah, so WhitneeCoy.com, Amazon. I do have an author page on Facebook and Instagram, so Whitnee Coy, writer. And so those are some of the places, and also Henry's bookstore in Spearfish as well.
Awesome. Well, hopefully, like I said earlier, hopefully some of our viewers are interested in kind of go out of their way a little bit and
Yes.
find some of those books. It seems like they are very good, a very good must-have for an at-home library, especially if you have children or if you like poetry.
Yes.
That's what it seems like.
And also schools.
Yes.
And also schools, I will
Yes,
say. Yeah.
Exactly. But for now, thank you for joining us on this month's Author Spotlight. Again, I'm Humberto de Sanchez. Today, joining us was Whitnee Coy, author educator. Thank you, Whitney, for joining
Thank
us. It's been a
you.
pleasure to talk to you.
Yes.
But for now, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.